Hi, this is Mr. Wick, and this is an extra credit assignment, and it's kind of like a fun murder mystery to do. It's called The Mysterious Death of Sid the Sloth. So let's look at the crime scene. Sid the Sloth was found dead this morning by security. Now you have to imagine that this crime takes place at Abraham Lincoln High School. The local police chief has called you in as the best crime scene investigator, or CSI, in Brooklyn to find out who killed him and why. And locals and students around the neighborhood have been arriving to lay flowers at the scene of the tragedy. So this is the school, and you can see some parents here laying some flowers at the scene of this terrible tragedy. And on the right hand side we have Sid the Sloth, died at a very young age, only 23. So your task is to work out three things. Firstly, how was Sid killed? Next, why was he killed? And lastly, who killed him? And here are a list of suspects. So we have 5 possible killers here. We have Mrs. Sloth, who is Sid's wife. We have Fred West, the school janitor. We have Mr. Smothers, Sid's history teacher. Ariel Eastlake, the principal. And lastly, Odell, who is Sid's best friend. So how to solve the crime? So there are 3 steps to take here. The first step is to assess the evidence. Now, if you're a crime scene investigator, you've seen them on TV, normally what happens is after a crime is committed, they get given all kinds of evidence. And some of that evidence is good evidence, some of that evidence is bad evidence. And the first thing they have to do is sort out the bad evidence from the good evidence. The bad evidence is stuff that they don't care about, that they put to one side to let them focus on the good or the strong evidence. Okay, so that's the first step here. You'll see attached to this assignment there are 10 documents, 10 pieces of evidence. Okay, so your first step is to work out what is the good evidence that I'm going to keep that's going to be helpful to me, and what is some stuff that I'm going to not care about. Now, how do you decide what is good evidence and what is bad evidence? So we think about evidence in terms of strong or weak evidence. Strong evidence is evidence that is not biased, it's unbiased. And that really means that someone doesn't have a motive for lying. Okay, so that's what unbiased evidence means. Another good form of evidence is if it's recent. So if this is evidence from the time of a crime scene, then that's going to be strong evidence. And a lot of that recent evidence is what we call primary sources. So these are things like photographs or diary entries. They're written firsthand by someone who was actually experiencing the actual event. And then lastly, another strong form of evidence is if it's from a respected figure. So if this evidence is from, for example, a teacher or a principal or someone who's respected in a community, then that might be stronger than someone who you don't know, just someone off the street or a friend who maybe didn't hear things properly, or maybe they have some kind of bias. So that's what we think of in terms of respected sources. And then on the other side is the weak evidence. So this is biased sources where someone may have a reason to lie. Another form of weak evidence is if it's old. So if the evidence comes from like 20 years ago, that is not going to be particularly useful in a crime that was committed 20 years later. And also secondary sources. So if you have books or articles or something, maybe newspaper articles written after the event, that's what we call secondary sources. And then lastly, things like gossip, hearsay. Okay, if you overhear something from somebody else, that is not a very reliable form of evidence. So in this first step, you're going to get rid of all those weak forms of evidence of those 10 documents and just focus on the strong ones. Step 2 is to then focus on and read carefully the strong evidence. Okay, now what you really want to focus on here, and this is what crime scene investigators do, is looking at maybe some hidden link between two forms of evidence. Okay, what is the thing that connects them together? Solving a crime is a little bit like solving a jigsaw puzzle, right? You got to look for a piece of evidence in one good piece of evidence in one document, and think about how it connects to a piece of evidence in another document. And then lastly, step 3 is making your claim. Okay, and making your claim is really just saying who you think did this, how did they do it, and why did they do it, and thinking about the evidence that you used to solve the crime. So for this purpose, you're going to be using a Padlet, and the link is in the assignment. And I've got an example here on the screen of what your claim might sound like. Sid the Sloth was killed by a crossbow shot through the window as he did yoga. He was killed by the principal, Ariel Eastlake, because she was jealous of his friendship with Odell. The evidence pointing to these facts and the crossbow weapon database, which had Eastlake's fingerprints on it, as well as the surveillance footage from that night. Now, this is a completely made up thing, right? There's no crossbow weapon database, but this is the kind of thing I want you to do when you're writing your claim. Okay, including who, how, and the why, and what piece of evidence really led you to make those conclusions. So have fun with this. It takes some time. I've done it in previous years. People have really enjoyed it. It is kind of hard. Message me if you want a hint, and have fun and enjoy the Christmas break, everybody.